Hi. So many of us came today to learn what is the most important solution to climate change. And it's a very good question to ask. On the current trajectory, we'll suffer from food and water shortages. Some areas of Earth will become impossible to live, and millions of people will need to relocate. Many of us will die, and many species will disappear from the Earth. If we were to reach 4 degrees of warming, the Earth will be able to sustain only 500 million of people. And 2023 is already the hottest year on record. The extreme weather events will become more and more common. And the best answer to this question is it depends. Climate change is actually a huge issue, and we've been aware of it for more than 40 years. And with each year, it becomes harder and harder to solve. So during this talk, I'd like to tell you about one solution that has worked multiple times in history and has already contributed to solving climate change. So what's wrong? If we're doing so badly, maybe we're not good at solving big problems. Maybe we should just give up. So nearly 40 years ago, in 1986, we were facing two battles. US Congress and US Senate conducted two hearings. The first about climate change, and the second about other global issue that we've managed to solve since, the ozone layer depletion. So in the 80s, expeditions to Antarctica have confirmed that the ozone hole is getting bigger and bigger. In our daily lives, we were emitting CFCs that were contributing to this issue. But 1 year after those hearings, in 1987, we celebrated because the Montreal Protocol was signed and the size of the hole is getting smaller and smaller, and it's not an issue anymore. What's different about climate change? It was discussed just a day before on those hearings. So let's talk about perfect problems. The perfect problem requires three conditions. First, it needs to concern only losses. So, for example, we need to emit less. We need to focus on living a worse version of our lives. Second, losses are long term and short term and hard to visualize. The climate is getting hotter each year, but by only a small fraction of degree. Third, the exact warming is not certain, and it has substantial uncertainty. Unfortunately, it wasn't the case with the ozone layer. So the problem actually brought profit to the companies during the switch, and the hole was already there. There was no long-term uncertainty about it. So climate change might be actually a perfect problem. And as George Marshall said, introducing the concept, climate change appears to be the perfect combination of all three factors. Fortunately, it's perfect only if we phrase it that way. So let's take a step back. Is there another approach ready for us to use today? Well, today, Sunday, part of the weekend, is actually a remarkable invention. You can go out, you can spend time with your family and your loved ones, and you can watch a TED Talk. But it wasn't always the case. So in 1892, the steel industry instituted 12-hour work week. The workers were forced to work 24-hour shifts every 2 weeks. It seemed that everything was lost and we become just cogs in the industrial machine. But in the 1930s, the tide shifted for the workers. The Congress passed the Fair Labor Standards Act, which established the work week that we know today, and the weekend was established. Then President Franklin Delano Roosevelt said to the union organizers to go and make him do it. Weekend is actually a great win. We're celebrating each week. And in great part, it's thanks for those people who protested unorganized. But surely it works only in the past or works only for the social issues. Actually, solar panels are cheap thanks to the tremendous effort of German activists and organizers in early 2000s. Germany for 10 years created a constant demand for solar panels. In some years, they bought 2/3 of all the global supply of solar panels. And one newspaper actually mocked this approach. They said they fixed prices of the solar panels, and those panels could be used in some other more sunnier places. But Germany did what they could, and they did what was in their power. Due to the public pressure, they created this constant demand that allowed the technology to evolve and mature. And now those cheap solar panels can be used today in all those sunnier places. And also, the issue doesn't need to be directly connected to climate change. Poland struggles through our over-reliance on coal. Our president actually calls it the black gold. And this reliance leads to air pollution and health risks for children and adults who live around the power plants. So, in 2015, a group of small organizations from different cities in Poland created Polish Smoke Alarm. And the goal was simple: demand removal of the coal-powered old furnaces. And it actually worked. We decreased over the years from 18,000 to 5,000 today. And from the next year, it will be impossible to use those furnaces in our capital. And this is the blueprint for change. Climate crisis is a global issue, but it consists of smaller problems that we know how to solve. This is how it depends gets rid of the perfect problem. So you can focus on small wins that allow you to change the world around you for better. By cleaning the air, you can change the global supply of solar panels, just like Germans did, or improve health of your citizens, just like we did in Poland. And this works also on the full-time jobs we create. My job wouldn't exist without this pressure. Companies expecting regulations started reporting their emissions, and that's how my team needed to be created. And my coworkers don't need to care about climate change. Public did once, and because of this, companies can fund full-time climate job. So this is the role of activism. We need different solutions for different areas. Each city, each region has their own unique strengths and weaknesses. For example, Barcelona, which built a lot of their housing in 1860s, will have different solutions for sustainable housing than Warsaw, which had to rebuild from scratch from 1940s. So who are those people who drive the change? Are they people like Emma, with experience in sustainability, financial independence, and influence? Well, they actually don't exist or are really hard to find. People who do this fight are regular, everyday activists. Just like people who demanded weekends, we are everyday people. And we take some time off to go to a protest or create a press conference. We talk to the experts to become really knowledgeable about the area that we're going to talk about. And we know the needs of our local community. We're the layer between the community and the government. And if we don't represent the people well, some other people will represent us better. And sometimes it does sound like a job. Like a programmer, a doctor, and lawyer walk into a bar, but instead they demand a social change. But as we've seen, it actually brings results. So if you want to, how can you start? First, start with your local area. For me, it was Warsaw, and choose a topic like sustainable electricity. After a few months, you might be actually one of the most knowledgeable people about the area in your local city or region. Then you can drive the discussion. You can propose solutions that work for your area and go to municipal meetings and propose the change. And this change is really powerful. People in our organizations report decreased feelings of climate anxiety after half a year or year of being active. Because it's not an unsolvable global problem anymore, but it's many smaller ones that we can solve together. So, to empower more people, maybe it's time to get more free time. The first weekend movement has reshaped society in a way that would be unrecognizable for them in those times. Maybe it is time for us to also reclaim our leisure, get more free time that we can spend with our friends and family, but also become active on stuff that's really important for us. Our productivity has increased sevenfold since the weekend was established. And we don't need full productivity. There, in 2009 study identified 9 planetary boundaries beyond which the environment could not recover. And we already exceed 5 of them. Moreover, quoting a case for the job guarantee, About a fifth of all jobs are created not for monetary gain, but in order to meet some specific public purpose. Drugs must be inspected, security and justice must be provided. And maybe it's time to extend this interest to this number one public priority, the climate crisis. We should give more than 20% of our time for those public purposes and make Fridays for the Future a reality for all of us. So, we have tested this tool of social pressure, but we actually use it less and less. By Eurostat data, 45% of Europeans think that their democratic principles are in peril. We see a decrease in national voting turnout by 10 percentage points. And I think there could be two reasons for this change. First, it's consumerism. Like instead of voting, we try to vote by money. We try to make more sustainable choices. How we eat, how we commute, how we save money. And I think it's really good that we do this. I personally try to fly less and eat less meat. But our choices are limited by the system that we are in. And due to globalization, it's harder for people to organize, and we feel this brand of responsibility on us. We choose what we buy because the people cannot choose for themselves. So we shouldn't focus on ourselves only. Let's remember that carbon footprint is a term introduced in 2005 by a fossil fuel company as part of their marketing strategy. The company claims they wanted to start the conversation, but it could also be seen as a way to shift the blame on us. There's no need to regulate big oil if you can just do it yourself. The second tactic is more direct and harder to fight. The SLAPs are strategic lawsuits against public participation, and they are a big problem. In the past 6 years, there were recorded 3,100 cases of harassments of activists, community leaders, workers, and journalists. More than 30% of those harassments were in a form of judicial attacks, and SLAPs are part of them. So, in the past 6 years, there were documented 350 cases of legal cases that bear the hallmarks of SLAPs. So, for example, if the previous slide about carbon footprint was phrased a bit differently, I could become one of those people. And the bar is actually really low. 21-year-old Polish activist was sued this year by a gas company for talking about merits of installing a new liquefied gas port. The foundation that represents her thinks it's a prime example of a SLAP lawsuit. It's aimed to intimidate activists and people. Don't talk too much, or you get in trouble. So to tackle those two issues, we should focus on building a community. We can talk about the climate crisis. We should embrace others to embrace this shared reality instead of putting it just at the back of our heads. And we should support each other. We should realize that this problem can be solved best when we work together, rather as just individuals taking their responsibility. This fight might feel alone and alienating for many of us. So sometimes what we can only do is support each other through the way. So, to summarize, we need to break down the perfect problem of climate change. We did this multiple times in the past by solving smaller issues that we could win for a country, for a city, or for a group of workers. We shouldn't demand people to change their behaviors. We should instead expect the systems to change. And the best way to start is start locally. Find climate-related problem that can inspire people around you. And after a while, you find a working group that can help you fight this problem. Become an expert in your area and try proposing concrete solutions that give benefit to your community. You already have everything you need to become an activist. If you need a global cause, maybe 4-day work week should be a thing you could fight for. It would give us more time with our loved ones, but also more time to do the important work we think is good for society. If you can try it at your job, do it. For me personally, that was one of the best choices I've did in the last couple years. And in the end, remember to be a part of a community. Hard times and adversities are already here, and they'll become harder and harder. We need to support each other because we are all in this together. There is no second Earth that we can go to. And the best action is collective action. So our descendants will look back at this time we're living in right now. It will be described in history books, and the future generations will be either thankful for the decisions we've made and for the changes we've introduced in the society, or the ones that remain will be disappointed by the speed of the change we did and the unnecessary suffering we put on them. But we are the generation of action. The path is long, but as we know, it consists of a smaller problems that we know how to solve. Problems we will decide how we can solve. So I truly believe that the best solution to climate change depends on us.